Hi, my name is Brian Parham, and I'm the founder of the Rock Dojo. And I'm so excited to interview Camille today for today's episode of Why Does Music Education Matter? So, Camille, first question is, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. Thank you for having me, first of all. I was a musical theater kid growing up, and I thought that I would study musical theater in college, follow in my sister's footsteps. She went to UCLA. And then I started thinking about it a little more deeply and decided, the dancing and the acting, I'm not so good at, but the music, I've got that down. And I just couldn't think of anything else that I would rather do with the rest of my life. And so I studied music education with a choral emphasis and got my teaching credential and decided very, very quickly that classroom teaching was not my strength. So I pivoted to private teaching and I really love that. So I teach voice lessons to, as young as 5, as old as, somewhere in their 80s. So that's where I'm at right now, teaching voice and singing for recording projects. So
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, I'm a huge advocate of your voice lessons. When COVID hit, the first thing I need to learn how to sing, and I need to learn how to sing in tune. And so I connected with you via 30 Day Singer, and I have to say, those lessons, even though I'm not a singer and I still am challenged for singing in tune, but those lessons, they opened up my ears. And so for any musician who wants to improve not just their ability to sing, but their ability to improvise, their ability to write melodies, to compose great music, I have to say that was one of the most profound, I guess, musical experiences of my life. And you took me through just like the Olympics of intervals. I've never, ever, ever in all my years of doing music have seen such challenging intervals or such creative ways to use those intervals.
So, one thing that comes to mind as you're speaking is I wish that singing were a part of every instrumentalist training because, as you say, if you can hear something and understand either via solfege or numbers, however you think about pitches, if you can sing it, you can play it. And so I really wish that that was more common. I think that string players, specifically, violinists, they sing a little bit more often in their training. But with, most band instruments, it's just not the case. But yes, I'm glad you enjoyed that. I think I really love ear training and sight reading because it's the one aspect of music that is pretty objective. There's a lot of subjectivity, especially in teaching voice. Like, is the tone good? Did it sound good? And so, yeah, ear training, it's like it's in tune or it's not in tune, and that like cut and dryness of it is kind of fun for me.
I'm sorry, I'm like giggling because I'm remembering something that you told me during one of our lessons. I remember, when people try to sing, it's such an intimate thing. And when you're a musician and you're getting started singing after playing an instrument for like 10 years, you know you're out of tune. And I remember saying, I'll never forget this. I remember saying like, oh man, I just wish I didn't know. And you told me, yeah, but you know what? The world would let you know that you were out of tune. And I got such a crack up out of that. But I'm going to go backwards because we skipped a lot of years here. So my first question for you is, how did you get started in music? I know you vaguely touched on this a little bit, but then you skipped a lot of years. So early years, how did you get started?
Early years, my dad plays piano and sings, and we actually did not have cable television in our house growing up. And so, entertainment up until maybe sometime in middle school was just music. And that was our one extracurricular activity was musical theater and everything that entailed. So no sports. I'm not athletic, but very musical. Yeah, so it was very much a natural part of our household. Um, So I remember driving in my dad's Toyota and singing as we're going to Home Depot to pick up supplies for, the latest home project. And he would teach my sister and I to sing and to harmonize. So now when I teach people to harmonize, it's actually a difficult thing to put into words, because for me it was just this very, very natural thing, this like feeling of whether something is in tune or not. But anyways, yeah, my dad, that's the impetus.
And can you tell me about your philosophy as a music educator?
Mm. So my philosophy as a voice teacher, because this comes up a lot, is that everyone can sing, and that everyone can improve. And there's this false belief with singing in particular that either you can sing or you can't. You're a born singer or you're not. And I'm not denying that natural talent doesn't exist. It does. That's why we have the Beyoncés and the Whitney Houstons of the world. Um, but just the physical act of singing and improving those skills and coordinations is so possible. And I'm very, very passionate about that, because I think it's a limiting belief for a lot of people. Um, and I this is might be slightly unrelated, but I think we've gotten to the point as well where singing is also a competition, in a way that with instruments we don't have like a American Idol Guitar Hero show, but we have all of these singing shows where singers are being judged and sorted, um and I just wish that wasn't so. I wish that singing was something that we all did in the same way that we all speak, and we all, you can learn a sport, you can learn an instrument. For some reason there's this stigma around singing that I just don't agree with. And so anyways, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that totally does, and it
Okay.
actually it brings me back to something that I wanted to ask you earlier. And when I went to music school originally, I'm going to Berklee College of Music right now, but I went to Portland College, community college. They had a professional music program, and I remember studying the history of jazz. And when jazz was coming about, everybody had a piano. We didn't, people, that was their source of entertainment. And there wasn't this separation between the performer, the professional performer, and somebody who's like an idol. They didn't have that, and just like music for something to do because they didn't have a lot of other things to do. And you had mentioned in your early childhood, and it just makes me think of like, we live in an age, and especially I'm just talking about myself now, and live in an age where you can stay connected all the time. And I could like go through a day without having a second of being bored. And it can be really overwhelming. And on a personal level, it's one of the reasons why like the guitar has kept me sane for the pandemic the last year, because I can actually step away. I can turn off, well, for me it's doing a lot of work. I like to work, but I can stop working on my business, or get away from Netflix, or even like avoid reading a book on like an iPad, you know what I mean, it's another screen, and actually sit down and play the guitar. So I think there's something so much to be said. And the other thing that you
Yeah.
touched upon, which I feel so deeply as somebody who really struggles to sing and to sing in tune, is the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. I actually come from a family where my parents think that somebody is born smart. And so like, if you're not smart, then you know what? You're sorry, you were not lucky, and you're never going to be successful in life. And like most of my life journey has been like overcoming that early training, that like, and so related to singing, it's the same thing. I heard my whole life, it's like, you're either born a singer and you're not. And you're expected just like to just be able to sing like, your heroes without doing any training whatsoever. So any other thoughts on that would be great.
Yes. So the whole born singer thing, I think what we're not seeing is all of the informal training that went into making that singer so great. Whitney Houston is talked about as an example, and I brought her up earlier. People say, oh, she was untrained, she never had voice lessons. And that might be true. That might be true that she didn't have voice lessons and developed this gorgeous voice. And of course, there is something inherent within her instrument that produces beautiful tone. She's got that. That's a gift. But her family sang. Her mom was a singer. Music was a part of growing up in that household. And so you can't tell me that that doesn't count as vocal training. I know that I learned a lot of how to sing with agility and sing riffs and runs because we just listened to Mariah Carey, her Christmas album, when we were putting decorations on the tree every single year. She was my first teacher of riffs and runs, and actually maybe my only teacher, to be honest. I've never had a voice teacher who broke down how to sing a riff or how to break down, what pitches are in there. It's just all by listen and repeat, just learning by rote. So I think, yeah, I would love for singing also to be a part of schools, even not just within the music classroom, but same way, we sing our ABCs, and there's a lot of singing that goes on in like the kindergarten classroom. But I'd love for it to be a part of our culture more than it is, because then I think more people would, they'd give themselves permission to sing, and wouldn't develop this huge barrier. Yeah.
It's, I think it's utterly fascinating. To me, it's the only word I can think of is like the American idolization of singing, but it's also the same in the guitar community for sure. And what it discounts when you look at the person at the top is all the joy that takes place between the first moment that you pick it up and the journey that maybe if you eventually get there. I think what a lot of people fail to realize who aren't musicians, this is why I'm doing the show, is how much fun and joy and relaxation music brings at every level. Even if you're just getting started and you can just play a G chord and you can sing a triad over a G chord, it is like mind-blowingly fun. And I think that that's one of the things that's missed out on this mindset.
Yeah, I think it is very satisfying. I'm not a guitarist, but I'm learning ukulele, bit by bit. And it is so satisfying to play that first 4-chord song, that, C, G, A minor, F. When you've got that, you're like, oh, I can play anything. I'm amazing. And I think, what would be great, and maybe I need to develop this, is basically a first songbook for beginning singers, in the same way that you have like first guitar songs, as a guitar teacher, the 2-chord songs, the 3-chord songs. And that doesn't exist as far as I know with current, kind of pop music or music that most people would know. What I would put in there is songs in a limited range, because that's what gets most people, and that's what prevents them from singing, is they're listening to Lady Gaga and Demi Lovato, and they have this crazy, 3+ octave range that they're utilizing in a song. I don't have a 3-octave range. And so then people are like, well, if I can't do that, then I can't sing. And it's so not true. I mean, Bob Dylan, case in point. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'll put that on my to-do list.
Okay, well, this brings me to my next question, because you had mentioned earlier about schools and about offering voice lessons or music lessons to kids. So what does music have to offer kids, especially during the pandemic?
A creative outlet, something to work on that, as you said, doesn't require a screen. Fun homework, self-expression, emotional regulation, sense of accomplishing something. When a student brings a song to me that they want to sing, and they can't sing it. Their voice is cracking and they're even scared to go for those notes. And when we work on it for a couple weeks and get them to the point where they are singing the song, their voice is holding together, and then they can actually express themselves with that song. That's the whole point of technique to me, is getting over those hurdles so that then you don't have to worry about, am I going to hit the high note? Is my voice going to crack? And then you can just focus on the lyrics and the story that you're telling. Had a lot of students sign up for the first time for voice lessons during the pandemic because taekwondo wasn't happening. Other sports weren't happening. And not even young students, adult beginners as well, like you. Well, not exactly like you, but people who told me, I've always wanted to do this, and now I finally had the time, and I didn't have the excuse of not having time anymore. Yeah.
There's so many things in there to unpack that I love, but one of the things that you talked about is going from can't do to can do. And that's my whole philosophy as a music educator, is that music teaches kids fundamental success skills, because that process of getting from cannot, I can't sing this song, I can't play these 4 chords, to doing I can, is the same process. I don't care if you're doing singing, I don't care if you're doing mathematics later in life, if you're starting a business, the process is the same. It's creating a vision, right? Then it's identifying the challenges. What are the things you talked about? One of the things was range, for as an example. Maybe you're having problems with range, maybe you're having some problems with something else. But that process of getting in there, creating that vision, identifying the problems, and then putting into work to solve those problems, and then looping that process indefinitely, is the process of success in music or any other endeavor. So I love that you talked about that. And the emotional regulation, that's a term I haven't heard, but as soon as I hear it, it just makes so much sense. And that's exactly what I was talking about. I can't tell you, this is why I wish more people could experience music, is how fundamentally uplifting and joyful, just singing a note or playing a note on the guitar. It's so much fun. If more people only knew how much fun it is. Go ahead.
I do hope, though, I hope and I do believe that it doesn't have to be music for everybody. I think that you can have that same feeling, that same 3 hours went by and where did it go, with another activity. And so I think, even more than I want everybody to be singing and loving music, I want people to be having that experience, So even if it's not, even if it's not singing, I want it to be something. But yeah, I mean, name a time that you had spent, an hour or two playing your guitar, or for me, singing. Name a time that didn't make you feel better,
It's so true, so true. Often with me, I'm doing this crazy thing called the 10,000 hour practice challenge. It started off as a 750 hour practice challenge, and then it ballooned because the 750 was just too much fun. And I did it so easy. It was really easy. I did 750. I think I did almost 900 hours in 1 year. And I'm like, oh, I can just, what? It takes about 10,000 hours to master, to become at the level, my heroes, these people that I admire and all this stuff. And I'm having fun every step of the way. But there are days, because I run a business and all that, and I do a lot of business building, where it's sometimes it's 10 o'clock at night and I haven't gotten any time and I need to hit 3 hours a day. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, I really don't want to do it. I'll be the most fun of my day. And it's no matter how I feel about it, I could be miserable about doing just the idea, about doing it. And then I just grab it in 5 minutes. All of a sudden it's I've just already done my practice and I'm done. And it's just I feel so uplifted. Now, my next question for you is, oh, sorry, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, it's smart to have the guitars on the wall because you don't have to get them out of the closet in order to practice. I think that might be a tricky thing about singing, is you always have your instrument with you. But then I think it's a matter of getting rid of distractions, as you said before, and maybe putting the phone on airplane mode in order to get those practice hours in.
I live with my phone on airplane mode. It's the only
Mm.
way to get things done. So, anyways, how can parents integrate music education into the everyday lives of their kids? So, practical steps maybe that parents can use to integrate music into their everyday lives.
So from a very, very young age, I think we do a good job at this, or at least some parents do. Having songs for hand washing, for bedtime, for cleanup. Here I am assuming that people do this, and maybe they're not. So that would be a very, very easy one. Having, that book of nursery rhymes that you're going through with your kid. For older kids, I think that's where it gets tricky. And I don't have a good answer for that. But I think with young kids, they're sponges. They'll latch on to anything that you're doing. So if you're singing with them, even if you have, a bad voice, they'll sing with you, and hopefully you'll set them up with, the freedom to keep on singing. Um I think honestly, as simple as having music on in the house, having an instrument available in the house, even if you're not pressuring the kid to play it or putting them in lessons, just having it around. They'll start noodling around on that keyboard. They'll get interested, and then maybe they'll ask you for lessons, or you'll start with an app or an online course, something like that. But yeah, I think having music in the house, and ideally having some sort of singing, as a part of your daily routines for young kids. The students that I've worked with who have the most difficulty with their tuning, their intonation, did not have music in the house. So I have to see a correlation there.
That was definitely me. That's one of the reasons I was giggling so much is, you talked about having songs around. That's something I've never even conceived or even thought about that, having song.
Mm.
And now I would love to know please, what is the dishwashing song? Or no, not the dishwashing, the hand washing song
Hand
sound
washing
like?
song.
What is that? Please, please.
I, Brian, I legitimately don't know a hand washing song, but the cleanup song, clean up, everybody do your share, clean up, you know this song, right?
Now you're making me feel bad. I need to step it up in my house and do more dishes. Like, I'll be singing this today. I never heard this. No, I didn't. I know. I don't.
Oh, okay.
But I like
So
it.
before, was this before getting my credential? No, or as I was getting my credential, I can't remember. I substitute taught for a while. And so that would include elementary classrooms, special needs classrooms. So I think I was exposed to more of that than I otherwise would have been. Yeah, I probably, when I said hand washing song, I think I was thinking of the whole beginning of COVID, how long to wash your hands thing. And it was like sing happy birthday twice. I think that's probably what I was thinking of.
You know what? I'm actually, as an entrepreneur, I'm starting to see a lot of possibilities for you after this. We'll talk afterwards because you're naming a lot of, I think, holes in the marketplace. I'm just going to zip it. I don't want to give anything away.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
Okay. What skills should every young musician focus on developing?
Mm, I think a huge skill is sense of rhythm and beat. No matter what you play or if you sing, that will serve you so well. Um, this could be specific to a singer, but I think it applies to everyone. Understanding what different chords sound like, and you don't even have to identify that's a major chord or anything, but just when the chord has changed. Um, that kind of goes along with rhythm and beat. For a singer specifically, we have to understand, for example, how long the introduction of the song is before you come in. Or say you come in not on beat 1, but on beat 3. A lot of singers develop this. They just don't know how to name it. But I think if we can name it, even better. The ability to imitate what you hear. So that's the listen and repeat. Singing it, I think, pretty easy. We do it somewhat naturally. Instrumentally, you kind of have to learn a bit of music theory first to get that skill going. Ooh, I had another one and it's escaped me. Those are a few good ones to start with, though.
As you're saying this, I'm like, wow, these are all the skills that eventually instrumentalists have to unlock if they're going to reach the higher levels of playing. In the beginning, you're playing the technical. Yes, Camille.
I remembered.
Go ahead. I figured.
Okay. So it's not a musical skill per se, although you know what it is. The ability to keep going when you make a mistake, even without going out of time. So for the students that I'm teaching sight reading to, let's say we're doing do, do, re, do, re, do. The ability to, even if they miss one of those pitches, to not go do, do, re, do, re, and be singing that, out of time. And I'm sure you come across that with your guitar students too. And I'm interested to know how you counteract that.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I had this amazing gypsy jazz guitarist who came over for a little jam session, and I had never played gypsy jazz before. And for the type of music that I play, it's like, oh, you learn something, and if you make a mistake, you go back and you fix it, and you develop your repertoire, right? But for him, it was like, no, you put it on the song, and no matter what, I don't care if it's your first time singing it and you're reading a chart, you do not stop. And it was like, that was an incredible, and he was coming from it from like basically a performance aspect. It's like, if you're going to get up and you're going to perform, it's not like you're just learning a piece by rote. It's like you play through it from start to finish. Any of those improvisations that you screwed up, you just wait for the next time around, you'll have another chance to solo. And so that was interesting. And then back to those skills, I think those skills that you had mentioned that every musician should develop is the greatest selling point for instrumentalists who might be watching this to sign up for music lessons or singing lessons with Camille, because it will open up your ears. As she was saying, my ability to hear chords, my ability to hear melodies, my ability to hear intervals. But really, it was just like, after studying with you, the weirdest thing happened to me is I was just able to play complete musical phrases, which I couldn't do before. Like question, answer, like almost completely, like they were composed musical phrases. And that's something I've never had. And I think it's because of all those things that you mentioned, all the ear training and pitch recognition and internalization of the intervals.
That's good. Because I think some students get, they kind of fall off before they get to that point of integration. Because I'll do ear training with it connects. It's a little bit difficult. So what's really nice is we're doing ear training, and then in whatever song they're singing, let's say they're having an issue with the melody, their tuning is off, then I'll go back to, oh, this is a do fa, or we're just walking down the major scale, but we're starting on the 6th scale degree. And now that they've sung 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or la, so, fa, mi, re, do, then they're like, oh, okay, I know how to do that, so I can do it here. And then the only difference is the timing and then the lyrics that you're singing it on. So that, I think that burden is mostly on the teacher to help to make that integration. But I'm glad that happened for you.
You mentioned solfeggio a few times. I'm curious to know if you could give somebody, like give our listeners and viewers like a 60-second crash course in solfeggio for parents who might want to do the dishwashing song in solfeggio.
Okay, so if you've seen The Sound of Music, you've already had an introduction to solfeggio. Solfeggio or solfege is this Hungarian system for classifying pitches. So we have this musical alphabet, goes from A to G and starts over again. But when a student is learning to sight read, it doesn't make much sense for us to be going C, D, E, and then having to sing D, E, F sharp. So rather, we make, if we're in the key of C, we make C our do, re, mi, and they've learned those interval relationships or the space between those pitches. And then when we move to a different key, we just move do. Do, re, mi, do, re, mi. So essentially, if you learn solfege, then you can sing in any key, as opposed to on an instrument, you have to learn all those different key signatures in order to play in all, what is it? Is it 12 keys?
Yes.
Okay, to learn in all 12 keys or play in all 12 keys. But
I'm just happy I
that
got
okay?
you to sing today. You know, I have actually a recording of you singing Yankee Doodle. It is off the hook.
I think, didn't we do a slow version and a fast version?
It is really, really cool. It's like, you know, I didn't know that a nursery rhyme could sound that cool, but it is, you did it. You managed it. Okay, so Camille, I want to be super respectful of your time. Final question. Are there any questions I didn't ask you that I should have asked?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, what's the most difficult thing about teaching voice specifically? It's something that I was thinking about on my way here, because I do think that the voice is uniquely difficult as an instrument to learn and also to teach. And I hope that doesn't sound disrespectful for teachers of other instruments. But the fact that that most of your instrument is hidden within your throat. And the fact that no two people have the same instrument. So if I'm teaching you piano, we could play on the same piano and it's going to sound the same. And teaching voice, no matter what, it's going to sound and feel a little bit different. Me singing something versus my students singing something. So I think, yeah, difficult to teach, but also to learn. And so I have a lot of empathy for students learning and feeling like their voice is just this thing that they can't really conceptualize and don't know how to control. I think I would just want to say that's a very, very common feeling and frustration. And that's another goal of training your voice, is learning how your specific voice functions and what thoughts and cues help you to get the sound that you're going for. Because that is as much a part of learning voice as is ear training and, stylistic effects and scales and all of that. It's learning how to master your specific instrument as you learn about voices in general.
And if I could add one thing that I would say is, if you're someone who's just getting started playing the guitar, don't wait 10 years until you can play the guitar to start doing voice. Do them simultaneously. You will save yourself a lot of, I guess, pain, like delayed pain in the process. If you could add those two skills together, if you're playing piano or anything and you're thinking about doing singing, just get started at the same time if you can. Now, so that's my personal experience having been a musician. It will help you so much. So where can people go to sign up for music lessons with you or for voice lessons with you?
So they can go to CamilleVanNiekerk.com and everything is there. Specifically, if you go to, well, there's a lessons tab that'll give you more on my philosophy on teaching, take you to some YouTube lessons that are free so you can kind of see my teaching style. But you can also go to the links page and that'll take you to, again, the YouTube channel, my TikTok, and again, the link to do private lessons over Zoom if you choose that. But yeah.
And well, the one thing that we haven't mentioned is you are also an amazing performer. So I'm going to include all the links, and you had talked about the ukulele, and so I'll include a link as well to you performing. And is that something where people hire you to do
They
performance?
they can actually. So I right now, especially during COVID times, I sing. Let's say you have a project that you want a vocal on. That's actually what I'm doing today after after we hang up is singing for somebody's project that they have the instrumental done, they have the rap done, and then they want some backing vocals. So you could hire me for that. A couple platforms online. One's called Air Gigs, and the other's called Sound Better. Those are also on my website. So everything's there that you need. And at some point in the future, we might get back to performing live, let's say at, weddings, restaurants, things like that. Currently on hold, but.
Great. Is there any projects that you're working on that you would like to tell us about?
Ooh, well, Brian. I'm working on getting more content on my YouTube channel, free lessons. And I will be launching a Patreon very soon to support those efforts. So for a very, very small amount of money, you'll get a lot of good content. Same quality that I would give for all of my private students, so that you can be successful being your own teacher with my help, cheerleading and coaching you. But that's a reality of learning any instrument, is that you have to be your own teacher. So trying to set you up with the tools to keep making progress, even if you don't have that regular interaction with an instructor.
Camille, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I'm going to ask you to stick around for like 30, a little bit after I hang up on the recording, but thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.